The empty aisle. Sophia Winters stood frozen at the altar, the weight of 300 pairs of eyes burning into her back. Her cream silk gown, selected after months of deliberation, now felt like a costume in a tragedy. The church's grand clock ticked mercilessly past 2 o'clock, 30 minutes beyond when Julian should have appeared. Her maid of honor, Penelope, squeezed her hand. "Maybe there's traffic," she whispered, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her disbelief. Sophia's phone vibrated in Penelope's purse. With trembling fingers, Penelope retrieved it, her face falling as she read the screen. She tilted it toward Sophia. "I can't do this. I'm sorry. You deserve better than me." 3 years together ended in 13 words. Whispers rippled through the cathedral. Sophia's father approached, his face a mask of concern and barely contained fury. "Sweetheart," he began, but words failed him. That's when she noticed him, a tall figure in the back row. Unlike the other guests shifting uncomfortably in their seats, this man stood perfectly still, observing the scene with analytical detachment. His tailored charcoal suit contrasted with his copper hair, impeccably styled. He wasn't on either guest list. Theodore Kingston. Sophia recognized him from business magazines and tech journals. The founder of quantum innovations worth billions. Known for revolutionary software and a personality as cold as Arctic waters. As murmurs of pity swelled around her, Theodore moved forward with deliberate steps. Guests parted like water around a stone as he approached. "Ms. Winters," he said, his voice low enough that only she and her immediate family could hear. "I have a proposition that might salvage this situation for both of us." Her father stepped protectively closer. "This is hardly the time." "It's exactly the time," Theodore countered, eyes never leaving Sophia's tear-stained face. "My family's board meeting is tomorrow. They're threatening to vote me out unless I demonstrate personal stability. You need dignity restored. I need a wife." He spoke with the directness of someone proposing a business merger. "You're insane," Penelope hissed. But something in Sophia, perhaps the part of her that had built her boutique marketing firm from nothing, the part that refused to be defeated, stirred with interest. "What exactly are you suggesting?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "A marriage of convenience. 1 year minimum. Shared public appearances. Separate lives otherwise. I'll ensure you're generously compensated, and your embarrassment today becomes a footnote rather than a headline." The minister shifted uncomfortably. Sophia's mother gasped. Theodore extended his hand, palm up, not romantic, but offering a lifeline nonetheless. "My lawyers have a contract ready. You have approximately 90 seconds to decide before this becomes even more of a spectacle." Sophia looked at the expectant faces surrounding her, at the flowers she'd selected with such care, at the empty spot where Julian should have stood. Then she placed her hand in Theodore's. "I accept your terms." She didn't know it then, but what began as her greatest humiliation would become her most unexpected second chance. Terms and conditions, the R. Ink on their marriage certificate had barely dried when Theodore slid a thick document across his glass desk. They sat in the study of his penthouse, a space that reflected its owner perfectly. Minimalist, expensive and utterly devoid of warmth. "Our arrangement," Theodore said, tapping the contract with his index finger. "You should read it carefully." Sophia, still wearing her reception dress, a quick change from her wedding gown after their impromptu ceremony, took the document. The surrealism of the situation wasn't lost on her. 8 hours ago, she'd been preparing to marry Julian. Now she sat across from Theodore Kingston, technically her husband, discussing the parameters of their business arrangement. "The main points," Theodore continued, "are straightforward. We present as a legitimate couple in public. You'll accompany me to corporate events and family gatherings. We share this residence, though you'll have your own suite on the east wing. The contract runs for 12 months, with an option to extend if mutually agreeable." Sophia flipped through the pages, eyes widening at the financial terms. "This is generous." "It's fair market value for the inconvenience," Theodore replied without emotion. "Your marketing expertise will also be compensated separately should I require your professional input for Quantum's projects." Clinical nature of his approach was almost comforting. It helped Sophia compartmentalize the whirlwind day. "What about my company?" she asked. "I'm not abandoning Rose Marketing. I expected as much. Your continued operation of your business is acceptable. provided it doesn't interfere with required appearances. Page 17 outlines the schedule expectations. Sophia nodded, scanning the relevant section. And what about personal entanglements? She hesitated, then added for clarity, outside relationships. Theodore's expression remained neutral. Discretion would be paramount. The appearance of fidelity is non-negotiable for my board's confidence. What you do privately is your concern, provided there's no public exposure. Something about his detached efficiency both impressed and saddened Sophia. She wondered what circumstances had shaped a man who could orchestrate a marriage with the same emotional investment as ordering lunch. Is there anything not in this contract I should know about? She asked. For the first time, Theodore's composure faltered slightly. I don't entertain often. The space is quiet. I work unusual hours. He seemed uncomfortable discussing his personal habits. Olivia, my housekeeper, comes 3 times weekly. She's aware of our arrangement and can be trusted. Sophia signed the final page, then pushed the contract back. For what it's worth, I'm not typically in the business of marrying strangers. The ghost of a smile touched Theodore's lips. Nor am I. The following days established their routine. Theodore rose before dawn, disappearing to his company headquarters until late evening. Sophia converted the sunroom into a home office for Rose marketing, scheduling client meetings when Theodore was absent. Their paths rarely crossed, yet Sophia couldn't help noticing small adaptations to her presence. A coffee machine appeared in the kitchen after she mentioned preferring espresso. The harsh overhead lighting in her bathroom was replaced with softer fixtures, more flattering for makeup application. One evening, 3 weeks into their arrangement, Theodore returned to find Sophia cooking. The scent of garlic and herbs filled the usually sterile kitchen. I made enough for 2, she said, not looking up from the simmering pan. No obligation. Theodore stood in the doorway, briefcase still in hand, seemingly unsure how to respond to this deviation from their careful choreography of avoidance. I haven't had a home-cooked meal in... He paused, calculating, 17 months. Well, Sophia said, sliding a plate toward the counter stool. Contract doesn't prohibit dinner. Theodore set down his briefcase and, after a moment's hesitation, took a seat. It was their first meal together as husband and wife, a small crack in the wall of their perfectly negotiated separation. Walls crumbling, the Quantum Innovations annual gala marked their first significant public appearance as a couple. Theodore had briefed Sophia thoroughly. Key executives to charm, board members to impress, rivals to politely avoid. She'd nodded along, mentally categorizing faces from the dossiers he'd provided, treating the event like any other marketing challenge. What Theodore hadn't prepared her for was the genuine curiosity she would face as Mrs. Kingston. So how did you manage it? Asked Veronica Shepard, wife of Theodore's CFO, cornering Sophia by the champagne fountain. Theodore's been Silicon Valley's most eligible and elusive bachelor for years. Half the women in this room have tried and failed. Sophia sipped her drink, recalling their rehearsed story. Sometimes the right connection happens when you least expect it. But at a charity auction, Theodore never attends those. I wasn't there for him, Sophia replied with practiced ease. I was representing a client. We disagreed over a painting's value. The argument continued over coffee, then dinner. She smiled, adding the embellishment they'd agreed would seem authentic. I thought he was insufferable at first. This earned genuine laughter from Veronica. That tracks. And yet here you are. Across the room, Theodore was engaged in conversation with board members, his posture rigid in his tailored tuxedo. Sophia had noticed his tells by now. The slight tension in his jaw when uncomfortable, the minimal hand gestures when making important points. Currently, both were on display. Excuse me, Sophia said to Veronica, navigating through the crowd toward her husband. She arrived at Theodore's side just as Harrison Wells, the most vocal critic on the board, was mid-sentence. Still unconvinced the neural interface division warrants that level of investment when quarterly projections. Actually, Sophia interjected smoothly, sliding her hand into Theodore's. I've been reviewing those projections. The market penetration metrics don't account for healthcare applications beyond the initial targeted sectors. Theodore's surprise was momentary, masked quickly by professional composure. Wells, however, raised skeptical eyebrows. Mrs. Kingston, with all due respect, these analyses require technical expertise. and market understanding, Sophia finished. Which is precisely my area of expertise. I'd be happy to share the supplementary data my team assembled. We identified 3 growth vectors your analysts haven't quantified. The conversation shifted, with board members suddenly interested in Sophia's insights. Theodore remained silent, watching her navigate complex questions with unexpected authority. Later that night, as their town car glided through city streets, Theodore finally spoke. You studied our neural interface division. It wasn't a question, but Sophia answered anyway. I read everything publicly available, and perhaps accessed some materials on your home server. At his sharp look, she added, You never said your work files were off limits. Most people find the technical specifications impenetrable. I'm not most people, Sophia replied. The technology is fascinating. It could revolutionize rehabilitation medicine. Something shifted in Theodore's expression, not quite softening, but a new awareness. That was my mother's field before she died. Neuromuscular rehabilitation. The personal revelation hung between them, unexpected and fragile. Is that why you developed it? Sophia asked gently. Theodore looked out the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes. She had ALS, watched her lose function progressively. The neural interface started as an attempt to... He trailed off, then corrected himself. It was too late for her, but others might benefit. I'm sorry about your mother. It was 15 years ago. The car stopped at a red light, bathing them in crimson. Sophia reached across the leather seat, hesitantly placing her hand over his. Theodore stared at their hands but didn't pull away. The board doesn't know, he said quietly, about my mother being the catalyst. They'd consider it sentimental decision-making. Some decisions should be sentimental, Sophia replied. When they arrived home, Theodore paused before heading to his wing of the penthouse. Thank you. For tonight. Sophia nodded, understanding that his gratitude encompassed more than just her performance at the gala. Something fundamental had shifted. The contract that bound them suddenly felt less like the entirety of their relationship, and more like its beginning framework. That night, Sophia found herself researching ALS treatments, learning about the woman whose absence had shaped the man she was beginning to see beyond the cold exterior. Meanwhile, Theodore sat in his study, opening a folder on his secure server labeled simply Rose, a collection of articles and analysis he'd compiled about Sophia's business accomplishments long before today. Unwritten clauses, we first signs of autumn painted Central Park in amber and crimson, as Sophia and Theodore strolled along the winding path. 4 months into their arrangement, these weekend walks had become an unspoken ritual, never scheduled in their contract, yet somehow expected by both. Johnson and Mercer accepted our proposal, Sophia said, adjusting her burgundy scarf against the breeze. That makes 5 new clients this quarter. Theodore nodded appreciatively. Your rebranding strategy was excellent, says the man who built a tech empire before 35. Different skills, he replied, but the compliment lingered in his slight smile, an expression appearing with increasing frequency these days. Their comfortable silence was interrupted by Sophia's phone. She frowned at the screen. Unknown number. Probably another reporter, Theodore said. Since their appearance at the Technology Innovation Awards last month, where Theodore had unexpectedly thanked his wife in his acceptance speech, media interest had intensified. Sophia answered cautiously. Her expression darkened as she listened, eventually saying only, I understand, before ending the call. Theodore stopped walking. What is it? She slipped her phone into her coat pocket. That was Victor Harlow. The name landed like a stone between them. Victor, Theodore's former business partner, ousted 3 years ago after attempting to sell proprietary algorithms to competitors. What did he want? Theodore's voice had reverted to the cold efficiency Sophia hadn't heard directed at her in months. To meet. He claims to have evidence our marriage is fraudulent. She met Theodore's gaze directly. He's threatening to take it to the board. Theodore's jaw tightened, the familiar tension returning. When? He wants to meet tomorrow. Just me? Absolutely not. I already agreed. Sophia held up her hand when Theodore began to object. Think strategically. He expects you to come storming in. That's why he contacted me instead of you. They returned to the penthouse in tense silence. In Theodore's home office, he paced while Sophia perched on the leather sofa. Victor is vindictive, Theodore said. This isn't about exposing our arrangement, it's about undermining my control of quantum, which is exactly why I should meet him alone. You're too personally invested, Theodore stopped pacing. And you're not? The question hung between them, heavier than either expected. Sophia chose her words carefully. Our arrangement has been mutually beneficial. I won't let him threaten that. Our arrangement, Theodore repeated, something unfamiliar coloring his tone. Is that still what this is to you? The conversation veered into dangerous territory, the unacknowledged evolution of their relationship. The way Theodore's hand had found hers during the thunderstorm last month. How Sophia had fallen asleep against his shoulder while reviewing quarterly projections. The lingering glances neither mentioned. Before Sophia could answer, Theodore's secure tablet chimed with an urgent message. His expression darkened as he read it. Victor's been busy, he said grimly, turning the screen toward her. He's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. On what grounds? Questioning leadership stability. Theodore's voice was controlled, but Sophia recognized the undercurrent of concern. He's claiming our marriage was a calculated move to manipulate the board, not a genuine relationship. Well, he's not entirely wrong, Sophia said quietly. Theodore looked at her sharply. Is that what you still think? The question penetrated deeper than either expected. Sophia stood, moving to the window overlooking the glittering city. I don't know what to think anymore. When we started this, everything was clear, contractual. Now? Theodore prompted, stepping closer. Now I find myself wondering what happens when the contract ends. 2 months from now, we'll have satisfied the terms. Sophia turned to face him. What then, Theodore? The space between them seemed charged with unspoken possibilities. Theodore reached for her hand, a gesture that had become familiar yet still sent an unexpected warmth through her. I've never been good at articulating. Feelings, he admitted, the word sounding foreign on his lips. Try, Sophia encouraged softly. Before he could respond, his phone rang, the board chair's direct line. The moment fractured as reality intruded. We need a strategy for tomorrow, Theodore said, reluctantly releasing her hand to answer the call. Sophia nodded, but as she watched him transform back into the calculating businessman, she wondered if some contracts, once rewritten by the heart, could never return to their original terms. Beyond the contract, the Quantum Innovations boardroom had never felt so suffocating. Theodore sat at the head of the mahogany table, flanked by 12 board members whose expressions ranged from concerned to predatory. Victor Harlow stood by the projection screen, his satisfied smirk deepening the lines around his mouth. As I've outlined, Victor continued, the timing of Mr. Kingston's sudden marriage coincided precisely with our ultimatum regarding his leadership stability. The convenient arrangement, the boardroom door opened. Sophia entered, her navy dress and confident stride drawing all eyes. Theodore had insisted she stay away from this meeting, but as she took the empty seat beside him, relief betrayed his surprise. Mrs. Kingston, Victor acknowledged with artificial politeness. How appropriate you've joined us. I was just explaining to the board how your marriage is nothing more than a business transaction. Is that so? Sophia replied coolly. Victor clicked to the next slide. The contract. Theodore felt the board members stiffen around him. Someone whispered, Good God. A 12-month agreement, Victor continued triumphantly. Financial compensation, appearance schedules, separate living arrangements. Hardly the foundation of a genuine relationship. Theodore started to speak, but Sophia placed her hand over his. Where did you get that document, Mr. Harlow? She asked. Victor's smile widened. Does it matter? Its existence proves everything. Actually, it matters tremendously, Sophia countered, nodding to Theodore's assistant who distributed folders to each board member, because accessing private servers constitutes corporate espionage, especially when the document was deliberately planted. Murmurs rippled through the room as board members reviewed the contents. This contract is dated 3 weeks ago, observed Chairwoman Diane Foster, looking up sharply. Precisely, Sophia confirmed, created after we learned of Mr. Harlow's intended sabotage, with tracking code embedded in the document. She turned to Victor, whose confidence was visibly faltering. The IP address that accessed it matches your home network. Theodore watched as Victor's composure cracked. He hadn't known about the tracking code, That had been entirely Sophia's initiative. This proves nothing, Victor stammered. Everyone knows your marriage was arranged. Theodore finally stood. What began as an arrangement has become much more, which anyone who spent time with us would recognize. His voice remained steady, but Sophia heard the emotion beneath it. But ultimately, my personal life shouldn't determine my capability to lead this company. Theodore, Sophia interjected softly. May I? He nodded, curious. Sophia addressed the board directly. When I met Theodore, I saw what you all see. Brilliant, driven, sometimes frustratingly analytical. Genuine affection warmed her voice. What I discovered over these months was everything beneath that surface. His passion for neural interface. Technology isn't about profit margins, it's about his mother's battle with ALS and his promise to create solutions for others facing similar challenges. Theodore stared at her, astonished by her willingness to share what he'd told her in confidence. That's the leadership vision driving quantum, she continued. Not quarterly projections, but genuine impact. If that's not what this board values, perhaps Theodore's talents would be better appreciated elsewhere. The silence that followed was broken by Chairwoman Foster. I believe we've heard enough. Mr. Harlow, your allegations appear baseless and potentially illegal. Security will escort you out. She turned to Theodore. As for the Neural Interface Division, I'd like a comprehensive briefing on its healthcare applications. It seems we've underestimated its potential. After the board dispersed, Theodore and Sophia stood alone in the empty conference room. You revealed personal information about my mother, Theodore said quietly. I'm sorry if I overstepped. No one has ever defended me like that. Sophia moved closer. The contract expires next week. I'm aware, Theodore replied, his voice unusually hesitant. Have you considered renewal terms? Theodore finally met her gaze. I've been contemplating a different type of agreement entirely. What did you have in mind? Sophia asked softly. Something without an expiration date. His hand found hers. Something not written on paper, Sophia smiled. Those terms would need careful negotiation. I'm willing to spend considerable time on the details, Theodore said, his typical formality giving way to something warmer. Perhaps a lifetime. A lifetime contract? Sophia stepped closer. The professional distance they'd maintained dissolving completely. That's quite a commitment for someone who once considered marriage a business transaction. I've learned that some partnerships transcend business logic, Theodore replied. Some calculations can't be quantified on spreadsheets. Are you getting sentimental, Theodore Kingston? Entirely your fault, he admitted. And I find I don't mind at all. When he kissed her, there was nothing contractual about it. No terms, no conditions, no signatures required. Just the simple truth that what had begun as their greatest pretense had somehow become their most authentic reality. Later that evening, in the penthouse they now truly shared, Theodore presented Sophia with a small box. Another contract, she teased. The only one that matters, he replied as she opened it to reveal a diamond ring. This one's just between us. No lawyers, no witnesses, no ulterior motives. Sophia slipped it on her finger. I accept your terms. This time, when they sealed their agreement, it wasn't with signatures on paper but with a promise that needed no documentation. Some arrangements, they had discovered, were simply written in the heart,